Paul Maley, the mailman, this seems overdue, by the way. I feel like we need to have done this a while ago. But firstly, with your incredible story, where you are today, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Pete. I just having done all that stuff for Pink Lady Match for
Mm.
Breast Cancer Network Australia, um, I didn't realize how much stuff was inside still. I thought, well, you get past it and then you just focus on life and get nervous every 6 months or so for a checkup. But um, being around that organization and that event and telling my story a few times, um, I was sort of caught off guard a few times of all this emotion welled up inside. But yeah, I mean that's just one event, right? And as in the whole cancer thing. But life is good. I'm happy. Yeah.
As I said, it is a truly remarkable story, and the way to hear you talk about it now is something we're here to talk about in more depth. But I know a lot of NBL fans out there. I introduced you as the mailman because they remember those times of the mailman running around. I know you started in Ireland before coming across.
Yeah.
When you look back now
Research.
at the basketball journey,
Yeah.
before you get into what happened a couple of years ago, what are some of your best memories?
Uh, you mean the Australian chunk or all up?
All of it.
Uh, Look, I I feel like I guess I've shared this with close friends and my own kids.
Mm,
I feel like I was so blessed in that I did not grow up in a place that had a highly developed system with all kinds of pathways and elite level programs. I grew up in northern New Mexico. Like we're talking, I worked out on my primary school outdoor asphalt court, and there were literally tumbleweeds blown across the
mm.
court. And I was just a kid who fell in love with the game, like I really did. And so my ambitions were just one step ahead. Like I was never thinking because it wasn't there, wasn't in front of me. It was just, oh, I want to be the best player on my ninth grade team, or I want to be the best player on my high school team, and then oh, I'm the best player. Well, I want to be the best player in the district, the best player in the state. Oh, I've got college offers. Then you go to college and go through the same thing. Like I just never. And what that did for me was just I was just playing on the joy of it. I wasn't overstressed with where I was trying to go. So long-winded answer, but I have so many great memories through high school. College ball, as you know, is great
Mm.
fun, right? That shot you hit is still very memorable, right? Very memorable. Um, and then, time in Australia, I really thought I'd be here for 9 months and then go play somewhere in Europe. Uh, but I just found, I mean, it's just such a great place to live. And the league was good. It was a lot of fun. And even then, though, I was like, oh, I'll do one more 1 year. And then I'll do a 2 year. So, and then I've got another 2 year. Then all of a sudden you're kind of here. So winning a championship, 1994 with D-Mac and Mark Leader. And well, I could name all of them, but that was definitely a highlight. Just getting to play, though, in front of great crowds at a really good standard for so long, getting paid to play what I was happy to do with just me and a bunch of tumbleweeds. I mean, that whole thing is like, I feel blessed still.
Was there a time in that maybe first stint when you came into Australia that you could remember, okay, thinking, hang on, this is somewhere that I could actually settle down, I could stay for a while? Because we see it a little more now with guys coming in from overseas, especially America, and they find it very comfortable here. Do you remember anything in particular about maybe the country or the league that you thought, you know what, this could actually be home for me?
It was actually after the first year. No, maybe not home, but I thought I definitely want to stay and play. I always hesitate to tell this story because I don't want to be one of those guys like, oh, I could have gone back and played in the NBA. Well, no, but I did have another offer to go back to the New Jersey Nets, with whom I'd gone through preseason the year before and gotten to play my 8 preseason games, which, by the way, 2 were against the Bulls of Jordan, 1 against the Lakers with Magic, and 1 against the Celtics with Bird. So if you're going to only have 8 preseason games,
That's pretty
pretty
right,
good.
right.
It was good. But, I had an offer to go back to vets camp. I didn't have to go through summer league or any of that sort of stuff, rookie camp. Um, but at that moment, I was like, "You know what? I can go back and try to be the last player on what was then a horrible team,
Mm.
or this is a great league. I get to play. Okay, money's not the same, but it's pretty good. It's good living. I think I'll do this for a little while." So that was probably, and then in terms of living here, though, that was more like, okay, well, I'm married, and then, okay, well, I've got a kid. I looks like I'll probably stay. Yeah.
That journey of and the things you look back on and all the success you had on the court, and I know you having spoken to you a lot over the last couple of years. 2 of your children now doing incredibly good things at the highest level possible in the AFL,
Yeah.
in the Olympic level. Sitting here thinking about your journey, also understanding the journey that they're still on in their young early careers, how does that make you feel?
Amazing. Like I always say that, hey, if they wanted to become cellists, I would have been wrapped. I wouldn't have been able to help them at all. But, it just so happens that they've both gone into professional sport, obviously Annalie in my sport, well, her sport, but yeah, she's better at it than I was. But, uh, so there's so much common ground there, and just an ease in terms of ability to relate and maybe share some advice. And Finbar, obviously, I don't claim to know a great deal about AFL, but it's still professional sport, right? And mindset and sort of taking your knocks and all that sort of stuff. But I look at them and I do try to tell them, hey, when you're young, it seems like, the times you're waiting around last for an eternity and you've still got all this time. But I'll tell you what, I know I sound like an old guy, just another one, but it goes by so fast. Don't forget to stop and look around and remember how lucky you are.
Did you have a moment at all when they were growing up where you had to remind them, "Hey, your old man could hoop," or did they figure that out on their own?
Well, you know what? I was not one of those parents who let their kids win. I just figured, well, the time will come when they'll beat me on their
Yeah,
own.
I like that.
So in the driveway, I was brutal. Yeah, I did.
That's the way it should be, to be fair,
Yeah, yeah.
and clearly it's worked out because 'cause they're both doing incredible things.
Yeah.
Sitting here talking to you and for those fans listening to you would probably be thinking, Finbar making his AFL debut, Annalie doing the things she's doing at the international level, everything that she's achieved, that everything will be going great. And then I know in 2023, when your life all turned around, take us back to that first moment. I know you talk about telling that story. I've heard you talk about it, but when you
Yeah.
knew this isn't right.
So I was, I guess, in retrospect, lucky. I was just lying in bed, trying to get comfortable, and I rolled onto my left side and stuck my right hand in my left armpit, and I just thought I felt something in my left breast or my left chiseled pec, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger like pec. Um, and me, I don't know what you're like, Pete, but I've been,
Not chiseled, I'll tell you that
I've
much.
I've been, I've known I need another clean out of my knees for like 20 years, but I haven't done anything about it. But I kind of thought, oh, that definitely doesn't belong there. So I went to the doctor the next day, and that was critical because it's all about early detection. And, from there, I probably dragged my feet on getting an ultrasound. The GP was pretty nonchalant in terms of, it's like, "Ah, it's probably okay, but we'll get it looked at." So I probably wasted a week, but once I got the ultrasound, I think I was in surgery 2 weeks later, and from there, like, everything happened quickly, and that was critical because it had already I had a tumor in there that the cancer had migrated to some lymph nodes, so it was already moving, and they had to take those out. If I had left it and done what I normally do, then, could have been a drastically different story. So, uh, it's a it's a rude shock. You get just the C word alone is just massive whack of fear, and, also, like, breast cancer? Well, how can I have breast cancer? But, you sort of learn a bit as you go, obviously, and it's about 1% of all the breast cancer diagnoses are men. So, then you just start focusing on what you gotta do, you know? And, like, okay, well, what do I have to go through to make sure this stuff is gone and doesn't come back?
I'm wondering what's going through your mind when you go to a GP and something doesn't feel right, because that would be the last thing on your mind, as you said, breast cancer in a male, firstly, but even cancer in general. Do you remember that first moment where you thought, "Hang on, this might be a little more than if you're sending me to get an ultrasound," was it then when you thought, "I might hear some news here I don't want to hear"?
You know what? I think that's a really good question. I think I did a pretty good job of sticking my head in the sand for that one or about a week,
Mm,
in that I took his, "Oh, you know what? It's probably just a cyst." I was like, "Yeah, probably just a cyst." Even though it felt like I don't know how to diagnose any cancerous tumors, but it felt hard and, not what you hear as being kind of a cyst. And, but he was so calm about it. I was like calm. And then I was driving home and he called me and he said, "Oh, Paul, how far away are you from the clinic?" And I said, "Oh, about 20 minutes." And he goes, "Can you come in?" I was like, "Well, why don't you just tell me what the result is?" And he goes, "Oh, I prefer you come in." And that was the moment you're asking about. Cause then I thought, okay, this is not good.
what's
But
going through your mind then on that drive back?
I thought, okay, well, it's going to be cancer. Yeah, for sure. Like, what else is it going to be?
Mm.
You know, you've got some sort of lump in there. So, uh, and then somehow, like within a day or two of that, I had a call from a breast surgeon, and he said, "Yeah, it's breast cancer." So, um, yeah, from there, though, like as I said, after surgery, then I'm dealing with an oncologist and the surgeon. Again, I probably stuck my head in the sand or took the comfort of what
Mm.
they were saying was best case scenario, which was just we'll take it out, or that'll be done. But because it had moved and was in lymph nodes, and that kind of necessitated um, pretty heavy dose chemotherapy, like 6 months of it, and then radio, and I take a drug every day now for 10 years plus. So, um, but so far so good. Like they've done their job.
When it comes to the moment once you've been diagnosed and you've got to tell your family, because I remember distinctly when mum told me and how hard it was for her to tell me,
Yeah.
and then later down the track, hearing about her conversation with dad of how they were going to tell me and my sister. How did you approach that?
Yeah, the hardest by far. Well, the first person was my wife, um, who I'll just say was amazing.
Mm,
I sort of learned and sometimes would see the cracks, like how scared she was, but she did a great job for the most part being a support. That was hard, but telling my 3 kids was the hardest. And at that stage, my 3 older kids, my wife and I had a 6-month-old at that stage, so, um, there's a whole 'nother set of fear,
mm.
right, about what if I'm not around, but obviously wasn't delivering the news to the 6-month-old at that stage, so telling the 3 older kids was, that was really emotional, um and I just tried to focus on what I'd been told needs to happen and next steps, and I was kind of in a do mode,
Mm.
"This is what we're doing. This is a plan of action."
As you're going through those next few weeks, and as children, our parents are our idols. They're our source of strength, love, all of that. But for when you're going through these tough times, it kind of flips, because I've been
Yeah,
there. I've experienced where you
yeah, right.
become. How do you deal with that when you're the one going through it, and you probably never openly admit to your kids of like, "Hey,
Yeah,
seeing you do your thing is helping me right now,"
yep,
but it is.
yeah. Oh, they were definitely, support to me,
Mm,
in answer to your question, and I yeah, actually, I probably hadn't thought about it in that way. I think it was the overused word from a journey in that. I think I tried to, like, present like I'm in control and I'm strong with this. But, uh, as time went on, the chemo is no fun,
mm,
right? My wife still tells me, "You were so amazing and you handled it so well." And I tried to be as positive I could.
Mm.
But sometimes I'd see myself in the mirror toward the end, and it was like, wow, you know, um, this has taken it out of you. And oh, I felt weak and exhausted and stuff. And I think along with the physical journey of that was also the emotional journey where I was happy to kind of openly be the one who was being supported,
Mm.
and just allow that to happen, because it's not natural as a parent, right?
No.
You want to be the strong one.
And it's something that, yeah, I had to learn, and I learned after the fact too, because for a lot of it, I only saw the strong front that mum was putting on, and I'm getting that same sense through you. But then part of it was also understanding that this journey you keep talking about, you can't get through it on your own because it is
Oh,
mentally, physically, emotionally exhausting. So part of you accepting a vulnerability helps with the strength, I'm sure.
yeah, I think you're right. Uh, I reckon there's like 4 things that helped me through all the treatment. I mean, it's lots of things, but um, support is one,
Mhm.
right? Like family and close friends. And again, my wife was number one. Like she was amazing. Um, then a positive attitude, right? Um, and then we were able to, through my wife, one of the things she did was really research a lot of alternative treatments to both augment like the efficacy of the chemos, but also to alleviate the symptoms, right? Keep me in better health. And then exercise, weirdly, right? So, and I reckon of those 4 things, 2 you can kind of control, and 2 you're kind of either lucky enough to have or you're not,
Mm.
right? So, family support, some people just don't have that, and I was lucky. Um, I also think that a positive mindset, I mean, if you don't have one, you're not going to suddenly conjure one up out of a cancer diagnosis, right? Like you either have that by that stage or the ability to find that, or you don't. But exercise, I think everybody can control to some degree. And, uh, it might be 3 out of 4 that's out of your control because you got to have the financial wherewithal to seek the alternative
Mm.
therapies too. So, um, but those 4 things, like, yeah, they were key. And weirdly, so exercise, it's not like I was running marathons, but on the days when I felt like I had something, I was still getting out for a surf, and it would take everything I had with about 7 rest stops to get out the back. But then I would sit there and just think, how good is this? And I might only surf for 20 minutes, and be exhausted, but I felt so much better
Mm.
mentally and emotionally. So,
The mindset is it's really good to hear that. And I'm sure that's part of now your next role of telling your story and trying to help even just one person getting through it. I wonder, was there any moment in the tough times of the chemo where you had the why me? Because you joked about the chisel pec, but for those who haven't seen you play, but like
yeah.
always in really good shape, always
Yep.
looked after yourself like that. So the simple question I'm sure you ask yourself in the darkest of times is, why me?
So I can't say this because I feel like it's some extraordinary feat for me to have gotten there, but mm, mostly I avoided that because my view on life is life happens and it's kind of indiscriminate, and cancer in particular,
Mm.
and unfortunately I've had a lot of direct experience in my family with cancer, and my sister lost her oldest boy, diagnosed at 4, died at 9, an auntie, an uncle, a couple of grandparents, so the idea that, you know, that there was a little bit of breast cancer, what? But
Mm.
really the idea of me having cancer was like, well, okay, so, but what do we do?
Mm.
Because I just felt like, I mean, shit, the odds are, you know, not that great of not getting cancer.
Mm.
I mean, it's a fair chunk of people at some point in their lives, right? So, not really. not really. I don't think I wallowed in self-pity until, as I mentioned, that journey, the physical toll, I definitely had moments where I thought, "This is bloody hard," "This is no fun."
What gets you through those moments knowing as the top level athlete, one of the best, doing what you can do? When I look back, I talk about the highlights and all of that, to be taken away with the strength, the emotions. Is there part of it also understanding, look, this is just gonna happen at some point, I've just gotta be ready for it? Or is there nothing that can prepare you for it?
Ah, prepare you for it? No, I don't think so. I think even though I say I had a positive mindset, like I latched on to, okay, here are the percentage chances if I do everything they lay out for me, and that's where I went,
Mm.
right? Okay, well, none of this stuff is fun, but it all increases my survival rate. Um, but until you do it, I don't think there's much you could sort of do to prepare yourself for it, except, like I said, I mean, I guess people who have worked through things previously, who tend to look at life in a positive way, I think are gonna be able to find that, right? Um, and in that, I'm certainly nothing out of the ordinary. There's a lot of people with far more positive attitudes than I have, but, um, I've always just been grateful. Like, you asked me about the basketball memories. I it's kinda like I'm grateful for just small things too, the fear it's like it's a short time, we're all around, and it's a gift, life, and so I sorta thought, "Well, this sucks, but here's what I need to do to make sure I still get to stick around, and let's do it," you know?
The part of it all that, and I remember when I heard the news that Paul Maley had breast cancer, and you can imagine my first response was like, "Breast cancer?"
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is there still part of you that thinks breast cancer?
No, not anymore. Not anymore, 'cause it's just that once you're there too, it's just like, well, it's cancer.
Mm.
23,000 Australians every year get diagnosed, and so you're just one of many trying to deal with it, so, that's sort of dissipated pretty quickly. There was, as I said, early, kind of a bit of, "What the hell?" But, no, I felt just like, okay, well, I'm one of so many who have to go through this, and I was lucky that my prognosis was pretty strong,
Mm.
like so long as I did the chemo and the radio and the drug stuff. So, um, yeah, lucky. If you're gonna get it, lucky. Like another thing that's lucky, there's not a lot of lucky things about cancer, but if you detect it early, breast cancer is like the most well-researched,
Mm.
well-understood, well-funded cancer there is, right? So then I benefited from all of those millions of mostly women who'd gone through it before and, all the statistical data on how to best treat exactly the type of cancer I had at exactly that stage, so whereas, people get stricken down with rare stuff with very low survival rates, um, yeah, yeah, no control, right, either
Mm.
way, so.
You mentioned how you do your checkup every 6 months now, and you also spoke about how you're telling your story. It kind of brings back a lot of the emotions, I'm sure, and the memories. Do you remember a part of when you came through the toughest part of the journey where you realized, I have a powerful story here where, and I heard you talk about it, if I can just help one person or make them think, okay, I know it's breast cancer, but I need to get checked. It's worth it. Do you remember a part of acceptance of this might hurt to talk about, but it's for a greater purpose?
Ah. I I think, that caught me by surprise,
Mm.
and to be honest, I was a bit, uh, I was surprised that anybody wanted to hear my story or in that context, um sorry, Pete, I am thinking about what you asked me previously, and it the answers I've given sound like I never had doubts or moments of fear, and that's not the case,
Mm.
like, I just wanted to touch on that. I had moments where it wasn't, "Why me?" but it was, "Holy shit, people die." you know, there's a chance I don't survive this, you know, and you look at instead of focusing on the percentage chance that you do, that what's left out of 100 means there's a fair chance I don't, you
Mm.
know, and so I definitely had plenty of times where I was bloody scared, you know, fucking petrified, actually. Sorry for the language.
But I think that's
But
part of you talk about having the positive mindset is for those who may be saying, you know what, I don't want to see the bad side. I don't want to see that. I want to focus on just the positive.
yeah,
Understanding both probably does give you a little bit more strength in a way, I'm sure.
yeah, but I mean, there's times when it
Mm.
overwhelmed me, you know, and I would be reduced to tears just sitting in my car or whatever it was. But uh, so sorry to digress, but in answer to the question, it was kind of a fluke. Um, I work with iAthletic now, and we have a partnership with Spalding. Um, and so I was working with them, and somebody from Spalding said, "Hey, we have this partnership with Breast Cancer Network Australia. We do an all-staff day. I hope you don't mind me asking. I understand you've had your own experience. Would you come and share your journey?" And I thought, sure, you know, and I didn't really think much more of it. Like, I didn't know what to expect, how many people would be there. And I went, and I kind of, you know, put a bit of thought to it probably on the car ride. I thought, okay, well, I'll touch on this, this, and this. But I didn't have a structured speech or anything. They said, just tell your story. So I did. And there was a woman there from Breast Cancer Network Australia. And she said, look, that was really powerful. And I thought, oh, okay, that's good, I guess. But to answer your question, there wasn't a moment yet. And she asked me if I would come and do the same there. And it wasn't until I did it there, and there was more like, I don't know, 50 people in the room. And, yeah, you do a lot of public speaking, and you know when your audience is there,
Mhm.
right? And a, it wasn't a polished performance. It was just me telling my story, but it was like clearly they were sort of, for that period of time, they were in the story. And so when they asked me to do to be an ambassador for Pink Lady match, I thought, again, though, I was like, well, that's pretty amazing, but there are people going through the thick of treatment now, or who might have just lost somebody. Shouldn't you reserve that for them? But then, really, it didn't take long for them to explain, well, yeah, but through you, we might be able to get this out there, because media has a few angles to latch
Mm.
on to, Finbar and Annalie and my own past. And so it was then that was it. It was then that I thought, okay, yeah, this is an opportunity to tell that story, and to be able to spread the word. And maybe if there's just one guy who feels a lump and doesn't sit on it and goes and gets a check, and he's sitting around like I am now as a result, then it's worth doing.
Have you had that one anonymous or random person somehow contact you since talking about it that hit home like, okay, this is now a greater purpose for me? Because I've got that personal thing, and we've
Have you?
got a 12-year-old kid
Right.
after mum passed,
Right.
and I remember for the rest of my life, and I was like, okay, my story now is something that hurts every time,
Yep.
but it helped him, so it's gonna help
I've had some people contact me and say thank you,
mm,
and that they they were grateful that I shared the story, but I don't think I've had anybody say it's resulted in this. You know, it was just they appreciated it, whether they had somebody in the family going through it, or, you know, that it took courage as a man to speak up against, about breast cancer
mm,
or whatever. But probably not yet. I hope to. That would be great, right?
mm.
And like you, I mean, well, no, not like you. I'm here. You know, you lost your mom, which is it would hurt every time you talk about it. Um, but if I can, if that, I would love to hear that somebody's, as a result, thought, I'll go get this looked at. You know, that would be amazing.
And I'm sure it's gonna happen, and it's gonna continue to happen because it is so powerful and takes a lot of courage to do it. And that's why we appreciate chatting with you now. And I do wanna touch on, because you brought it up, those just a couple of, like, those dark times where you are the mailman. not were the mailman, but you were that the way you played the game at the highest level, where anyone would think, you know what, this there'd never be a time in life, whether it's cancer or whatever, where you would have to reach out and say, "Hey, I need somebody to help right now." But you had it.
Yeah. I mean, and it was you couldn't sort of pick it, like, as in just little things, w that whole would drive home that realization that, "Holy shit, there's a chance here I don't survive," you know? And, um, I did not one thing I didn't do is when that hit me, I reached to my wife, I didn't reach to my kids.
Mm.
So as much as you ask, and they were amazing, and just the ability to tune into a basketball game or a footy match or chat to my oldest son about the surf he just had because
Mm.
he's a bloody good surfer. Um, those things helped me enormously, but when I had the dark moments, it was and even that was hard because I knew she was afraid, so I didn't want to make her more afraid, but, you know, I did. I suppose I leaned on her, and, uh, but again, if you go back to what I was saying, like, if I'm lucky that I had somebody like that and my kids and some close mates who were amazing, you know, like, um, I had mates we went through a renovation. It's like right after I'd had the port put in my bicep. So before the surgery to remove the no, after the surgery, but before the chemo. Sorry, I'd had the breast surgery, then I had the port put in ready for treatment, and we were going through a renovation where we had to demo this whole place, and I couldn't do a damn thing. And my wife got on to some social media and said, "Hey, this is happening this weekend, you know, anybody can come down and lend a hand." And I was blown away, right? I
Mm.
had friends come from everywhere. I had people that I hadn't seen in 10 years show up and spend a half a day on a jackhammer or, you know, chiseling away tiles or whatever. That was pretty cool, you know, to have all those people come and help. Like, that was amazing.
There's something incredibly powerful in all of that from a parent's perspective, where no matter what happens, you're gonna shelter your kids from the worst of it, because you said you weren't gonna go to them.
Yeah, no, and I
Wha
was crying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for those who aren't parents wouldn't understand, but why do parents feel like that? And I know you said some people don't have the
Yeah.
support of a wife, but it is, and it's something that, yeah, like, it's a particular thought of, I don't want them to see me, I don't want them to know this,
Right.
and also, like, they know, they remember they know who dad is,
Right.
and there's part of that image that
Right.
you also.
Well, you just don't wanna load your kids up with it, do you? Like, I mean, I know you have a very young daughter,
Mm.
but, um, as they grow up and go through stuff, like, you wanna shield her, you know? And, it's always a constant battle. You go, "Oh, well, yeah, they've gotta understand what life is like," and so forth, but, um, you don't wanna share with them something that you know is gonna hurt them, you know, and just make them feel like okay, here's a good way to answer it. I'll never forget the first time I saw my dad cry,
Mm.
right? And we had a black lab named Duke who died, and he dug a grave in the garden, veggie garden, and he had finished digging and it was, you know, decent sized grave. It was probably 3 feet deep and the size for a black lab. And then he sat on the edge of it, and I happened to be walking up behind him, and he just broke down in tears, right? Now, he didn't know I was there. Now, I didn't even know, I mean, oh, was it sort of my head wasn't around, well, this is what dad's going through. I just saw my dad crying. Well, I immediately started bawling, you know,
Mm.
like dad's crying. I was in tears. I was a mess. And then he had to console me, right? So I think that instinct is just like if I had shared with my older kids how I was feeling in those weak moments or those dark moments, um, you just know it hurts them. Well, why would you do it? If you have somebody else, you know?
There's a weird. beauty in the naivety of that for the kids' side because and I'm sure if you asked any of them now, "Do you wish that I'd reached out when I was struggling?" They would say, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
But your parent wouldn't do it.
Fin Finbar said that many times. So
Mm.
my now 22-year-old, he's like, "Dad, you can talk to me. You can talk to me. I'm old enough. You can share some of this stuff with me." I was like, "Thank you, buddy. I'm good though.
Mm.
No, everything's going great." But he pushed for it. And no, but I mean, I did have my wife there, and she was an amazing support. So, and I did have mates that I reached out to occasionally and, unloaded. Um, chemo's a chemo's a bear. Like I I reckon it was like somebody asked me what's it feel like, and it's kind of impossible to describe, but
Mm.
the only thing I could come up with was when they asked, I said, "Well, it's like you got a old style slot machine, and there's like about 11 symptoms up there, and you got bone shattering fatigue, you got the driest mouth ever, you got a splitting headache, you got nausea, you got this kind of dizzy feeling, you've got peripheral neuropathy, you've got all this different stuff going on, and it's like every 3 hours you pull the lever, and a minimum of 3 of those are going to come up, and sometimes you hit the jackpot and all 11 of them come up, and you feel that way for about 3 or 4 hours, and then you pull the slot machine again, and you get 5 or 7 or 3 or whatever it is, and that goes on for 6 months, that's basically how you feel. So you learn to, like, there's a new normal, right? But, um, it's impossible to go through that and not and just feel like, "Ah, no, I've got this all the time," you know? Like, it's because it just keeps you throwing you curveballs. You
Yeah.
don't know what's gonna come up. So, yeah.
It's great to be able to have this conversation. I'm glad that you're so comfortable now with talking about it, the Pink Lady match, and I'm sure it probably hit a little different as well, seeing your name on Jake Melsham's warm-up top.
Yeah. He was, by the way, what a lovely young guy,
Mm.
like an impressive young guy. So he came out of the locker room before the game to meet with me, and we had about a, like, 10-minute chat, and he was engaged and just articulate, intelligent guy. He was awesome. He was great.
And I'm sure the humbleness in you is probably thinking, as you said a couple of times, like, "There's other people out here."
Yeah, who need this.
Mm.
Yeah, more.
Was that hard for you to grapple with? Because there's part of me that sits here and is like, there's probably no one more fitting, deserving is not, it's a weird word to use, but to be in this with the way you're telling it and how
Humble.
important it is.
Well, thank you, mate. But I think though, it definitely was that was the thing when they asked would I do it, I was like, well, feel like I'm not worthy of
Mm.
having that. Like somebody else needs that more than I do, and it would mean the world to them. Now, what it came to mean to me was a good part sort of pragmatic, utilitarian, like it's part of getting the message out. Um, but being there on the day, I did say to my wife, I go, that was a lot more than I expected the whole day. Like it was way more emotional. There was way more things like meeting with Jake and seeing my name on his jersey and thinking, God, this is pretty cool. And walking out on the ground and then just seeing that sea of pink and all the people. It's a huge community of people. And so it was way more emotional than I thought it would be. And some of the speeches, like weirdly, a politician nearly moved me to tears, which how often does that happen? Not very often, but um, yeah. So I lost my way. But in answer to your question, I did struggle with it because I felt like that shouldn't be me. That should be somebody else. But I guess it was part of putting me in a place to tell the story and get different media outlets to latch on.
It's incredibly well done, and I'm so glad we could do this. Like I said, this is very overdue from a basketball standpoint, but also a life one. So it's been great catching up. I know you're still around the game. We see you pop up all the time. Obviously, your kids are doing wonderful things as well. So thank you, man, and we'll see you soon.
Mate, thank you. This is I've enjoyed it, and I'll just say I always enjoy seeing your head and hearing your voice on the telly. You do an amazing job. No, seriously, you are part of what has brought the NBL around to being such a watchable, engaging product again. Like, you do an awesome job.
Thank you, man. It's weird. As much as I love talking about the game, this is one of the most special things I get to do with this job. So thank you very much.